So with the official release of 976, we have the return of Jinbei into the story and his full return to the Straw Hat crew, with his order box giving us his full position as the helmsman and his bounty of 438 million. But between the time of Jinbei being asked to join and his full integration into the crew, there have been other characters that have shown great potential in joining as well. Some that could be joining as soon as the end of Wano. So let's talk about it. Since the start of the New World, hell, since the start of the series, the topic of new crew members has been an interesting topic to say the least. Bringing up characters like Gin, Johnny and Yosuke, Smoker and Tashigi, Vivi, Wiper, Paulie, and a few other characters to say the least. But more recently, the main candidates that seem to be at the forefront of every potential crewmate discussion are Carrot, Pedro, Momonosuke, Otama, Katakuri, Law, and for some reason Caesar. And while I have discussed a lot of these characters with people in the One Piece community and have heard some real convincing arguments, let's address the least likely characters, the ones that I believe have little to no chance of boarding the Sunny as members of the main crew. And I say main crew because I do believe that Katakuri at least will be an ally in one way or another. But those characters being Pedro for obvious reasons, Katakuri because he's literally the strongest member of Big Mom's crew and is loyal to Big Mom and his family. Law because he's one of Luffy's contemporaries and I don't believe that any of the Supernova will end up joining Luffy's crew, as well as having his own living crew and has shown little to no interest in leaving them, let alone joining Luffy's crew, especially following Dressrosa. Caesar because the crew doesn't like him and vice versa, and much like Law, he has no reason to join Luffy. Aside from Pedro, all of these characters either have allegiances to other crews, have no real reason to join the Straw Hats, or have goals that don't align with Luffy or the rest of the crews. Like Law, for instance, his goal was to take out Doflamingo, and post Dressrosa, it isn't really clear what he wants past taking out Kaido. So to join the crew would mean Law would be tagging along just for the hell of it. Not to mention, he'd be abandoning his crew for essentially nothing. Besides, we already have a doctor that we all love, right? Going over to the more likely candidates, and one that I've seen a lot of discussion around is Otama, little girl from Wano who Ace promised to take out to sea once she became a full-fledged ninja, or bewitching Kunoichi if you want to be specific. And while the potential as an apprentice or cabin boy or cabin girl is there, especially when you take into account that Luffy could be the one to fulfill the promise that Ace made to her. But one thing that I feel like a lot of people tend to forget or just tend to overlook, it's that Ace promised to take her out after she had already become a ninja. That's her goal. It's essentially her dream. Though Nami is technically a Kunoichi in Wano and would be able to teach Otama some of her quote-unquote ninjutsu, Nami is still a novice Kunoichi, and I doubt she's qualified to teach Tama how to be a proper shinobi, considering the only real overlap that ninja and thieves have are being able to sneak around, leaving the only proper teachers for Otama in Wano. Now, another character that tends to have a lot of discussion around her in terms of joining the crew is Carrot, and she's a special case for me. She is the single most talked about in terms of joining the crew for some reason or another. I recognize that she gets along with the crew on a certain level that only close friends of the Straw Hats can, and I understand that she has jumping power that makes the lookout position seem pretty much perfect for her, and her Sulong ability comes off as something really unique, and her being a mink only adds even more diversity to the crew. On paper, I see how all these things could work in her favor, but when it comes to her spot in actually joining the crew, personally, I don't see the necessity. Her position in the crow's nest might be a perfect fit for her, but there's no real need for a dedicated lookout on the crew. Anybody can and does do it already. And I know the same could be said about a helmsman up until you look back at instances in the series, like back in Alabasta when Hina was chasing the crew. While the crew did ultimately escape with the help of Bon Clay, if the helmsman of Jinbei's skill were there, the Mary may have survived longer than Water 7. And given that we have Chopper, who's pretty much a mink in every way but name, who has Monster Point, which is pretty much a pseudo Sulong in my opinion, in the sense that it's a temporary power boost and strength that renders the user immobile for a short time after using it, much like the Sulong form that Carrot displayed in Whole Cake Island. It's also of my belief that the Electro ability that Carrot has and that all minks have is a byproduct of the mink's fur, and at some point Chopper may even learn it. But like I said, Carrot is a special case where I see her potential and I see her worth, but I don't believe that it's enough to merit her sticking around for the rest of the series. But at the same time, I still do think that there is a huge chance that at the end of Wano, she may be leaving with the crew. I don't want her to join, and I don't think she will, but I do see her potential in joining and think she has a really high chance. Lastly, the one that I do believe to be joining at the end of Wano and being one of the last Straw Hats to join is Momonosuke. Going into Wano, we already knew he wanted to be the Shogun of Wano, and after seeing Orochi, it seems like the title isn't earned by bloodline alone. You have to have some semblance of respect from the people of Wano, as well as a smidge of power, whether it be raw strength like Odin or intellectual power. Though Orochi isn't the most overpowered person in Wano, his Devil Fruit does give him some kind of strength, especially since it's a zone. And he was smart enough to scheme his way into being the Shogun, plant a spy among Odin's people well before Odin even wanted the title of Shogun, and continued on even after Odin had died. And when it comes to Momonosuke, he doesn't really have any of these things going for him right now. In terms of power and intelligence, he's more than lacking. He's completely non-existent in those areas, unless you want to count his finisher against Jola and Dressrosa. And as for respect of the people, though it may seem like the Scabbards, Citizen, and the Samurai of Wano are ready to follow Momonosuke because of loyalty to him and his name, but if you look back through Wano, it seems like the Samurai and the Scabbards aren't really in this for Momonosuke, but really more for Odin. As we've seen with Kinemon and the other Scabbards when they arrived at the port to raid Onogashima, it isn't Momo or Hiyori that they're necessarily loyal to or in it for, as shown when Kinemon told Momonosuke to run and hide while they ran off to a fight against Orochi and Kaido, and they were ready to give their lives in the name of Odin, not Momonosuke. And even if they were completely loyal to Momo specifically, he isn't really fit to lead and doesn't fully understand what it means to be a leader. He may want to be Shogun someday, but we saw how he reacted to the massive prisoners bowing at Udon. He got to see a small piece of what it means to rule a nation, and it left him speechless. He couldn't respond. He was left in a state of shock because he couldn't understand the hardships that the country had went through up until this point. And in my opinion, joining the Straw Hats would help him to understand hardship, leadership, and what it means to actually be a good ruler. And while I do believe Momo does need to do things for himself and in his own way, I feel it would be kind of poetic to follow a similar route as Odin and joining the crew of the Pirate King, especially after achieving the goal his father had of opening the borders of Wano. And learning from the crew as the apprentice of the Straw Hats, similar to how Shanks was with the Roger Pirates, will go a long way in helping him to achieve his goal of at least being worthy of the title of Shogun of Wano. Learning the trait of his family, of being able to read the poneglyphs from Robin, learning leadership and bravery from Luffy, medicine and navigation from Chopper and Nami, as well as whatever Usopp has to offer. And the most important, swordsmanship from Zoro, which throughout Wano we've already seen has been taking place. And I mean, who better to learn swordsmanship from than the future world's strongest swordsman? Going out to sea could also explain the reason of why Toki came so far forward into the future in the first place, and even the events that led the Kozuki to close the borders of Wano, if those said events are recorded somewhere or Kinemon and the other Scabbards don't give some huge exposition dump. But with Momo gone and Orochi out of power, that would leave the position of Shogun empty with no one to occupy it, right? No, in the absence of Momo, another Kozuki who, in my opinion, is better suited to fill the position until Momo returns, that's his now 27-year-old sister Hiyori. Hiyori had to go through the same experience that Momo had to when they were younger, and lived through the hellish rule of Orochi for the past 20 years. She knows the hardships of the citizens and knows how to help, as well as to manipulate and deal with the pieces of shit that are still in Wano now. Hiyori, with the help of the remaining Scabbards and the remnants of old Wano, I think she could restore Wano better than Momonosuke in his current state ever could. Now, I did say that I believe that Momo would be one of the last to join. I think that there will be at least one more person, but until we get the full scope of the Reverie, it's all mostly speculation and headcanon. But following the events of the Reverie, we found out there was an incident, one that the world government are going to great lengths to resolve, and this incident involved the Kingdom of Alabasta, and apparently during this incident there was a confirmed death, a death that I believe to be King Cobra. We know that Cobra had planned to bring up the topic of the Void Century and Poneglyphs during the meeting with the other world leaders, and it is my belief that during the chaos the revolutionaries caused in their declaration of war with the world government and the Tenryubito, the world government took this opportunity to kill Cobra for bringing up such a taboo topic and wanted to pin it all on the revolutionaries. And I believe that this is what the world government wanted to bribe Big News Morgans to cover up. But seeing as how he refused to cover it, who knows what the papers will read next time we see it. Now, following Cobra's death, I do believe that there was an attempt to kill or maybe even capture Vivi, but it ultimately failed, and Vivi is now on the run and will eventually make her way back to the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, I've had this conversation with a lot of people in the One Piece community, and people have brought up points against the characters that I believe are joining, like Momonosuke. He's only 8 years old. What could he do to help against somebody like Blackbeard and his crew? And Vivi really isn't that much of a capable fighter. For the most part, I can't really disagree. It's just something that I believe. Maybe Vivi learned something over the course of the 2 years that she's been away. Maybe she learned how to fight from Pell. Maybe not enough to solo one of Blackbeard's 10 Titanic captains, but maybe enough to tag team with Nami or Robin. I really can't dispute it, and until we find out, it's really just headcanon. But I hope you enjoyed the discussion. Leave a comment if you can, or if you think otherwise. Tell me who you think will join and why, or join the Discord. You can come talk with us. I'm trying to revive it a little bit. Until then, see you.